This game against South Carolina could mean a lot for the future of Clemson football. We'll talk about it right here on Locked on Clemson.
You are Locked on Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked on Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked on Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the number one sports podcast network. And it's a big shout out and thanks to the everydayers sticking with us Monday through Friday, every single week. Exclusive Clemson content right here for you. And about 70% of you are not yet subscribed. So what are you waiting for? Get in there, hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button over on a podcast, and so you never miss another episode. Today's rundown, as you see over on YouTube, we've got a lot to talk about. This is the Friday before the game against South Carolina. Hopefully you're having a good Thanksgiving break and Black Friday. Don't spend too much this holiday season. Segment 3, we're going to wrap everything up at the end, talking about what this game really means for Dabo Swinney and the direction and the program's future for Clemson. Segment 2, before that, we're going to talk about Cade Klubnik and how this could define his season. And then we're going to start everything up with execution and coaching, and specifically what this means for Clemson, not only to this weekend, but in the future. Let's get it out of the way. You know, we're going to hear a lot about the noise, a lot about the rivalry game, the emotions. You know, there's going to be pregame speeches that are going to be some of the best of the season. But all of that doesn't matter. You know, everything that us fans really care about and get excited about, pumped up about, all the hype videos and everything, none of that really matters. It's going to be decided by the same details that have been failing Clemson all season. And I mean failing. Clemson has not been good this season. Even in their wins, they've been very frustrating. And what we saw against Furman still didn't kind of help us out with our belief in what this team can do this weekend. If Clemson loses this game, it won't be because of William Bryce and the towels and, you know, all of the sandstorm and it really won't be because of Shane Beamer and his antics. It'll be because Clemson still can't get out of its own way, can't get the details right. What do I mean by the details? Well, they've been dropping games, first of all season because of missed assignments by Wade Woodaz, missed assignments by your defensive line, missed assignments by your secondary, Ronan Hannafin, Khalil Barnes. Some of the guys that you have to trust the most have been missing assignments at the worst possible moments. And if you allow your rival to take advantage of those moments, it's going to be the same song and dance that you saw against Syracuse, that you saw against Georgia Tech and LSU and Duke and all the other games that frustrated you this season. Those missed assignments could play a big role this weekend, tomorrow at noon against South Carolina. Has Clemson really cleaned it up enough? Now, we feel like the past couple of games, they have done much better. They've gotten a different rotation out there, but that's still something that concerns me going into this game, because if they were able to clean it up, they would have cleaned it up much earlier on, and they just haven't. The other thing about execution and coaching is the busted situational football. This has been Garrett Riley has really never been super trustworthy in situational football. Cade Klubnik's really never been trustworthy in situational football. And this season has kind of leaned itself towards Dabo Swinney being part of the problem as well. Have you noticed that sometimes after timeouts and a long delay, they'll come out with the most boneheaded play possible? To me, that's a lot of Dabo Swinney as well. Also, what we see after games where Dabo comes out and says, well, we've just got to rotate this player better, or we should have got this guy more snaps. That level of disconnect from what's happening on the football field, or what we saw with Furman, Well, I didn't know Jaheim Lawson was out there. He shouldn't have been out there. That level of disconnect from the head coach is mind-boggling, is frustrating. And these type of things are shaping towards not just this season, but they've got to stop, not just for this season and for this game, but for 2026 and beyond. The head coach seemingly disconnected, the team busting on missed assignments in critical moments. Those things have to stop. Elite teams are not doing those things. I'll even add more to it. If you don't mind, I'll give you my Christmas list of things that I think need to stop. And that is red zone stalling. Not just red zone stalling, but Garrett Riley gets his team into the red zone. There are multiple times where he's driven the team down the field and then never once attempted to throw the ball into the end zone and stalls out and forces a field goal. It's unacceptable to get in the red zone and have 4 downs or let's just say 3 downs and not at least have 1 shot into the end zone. To me, that's too conservative. That's childish. That is not trying to win a game. He's got to grow up and throw it into the end zone, and he's got to try to get it in there because that's what wins games. That type of aggressiveness is what's going to take you from barely winning a game and just playing field goal football to actually dominating games and stepping on an opponent's throat. Can you trust Clemson to step on South Carolina's throat? No, you can't. I actually have more trust that South Carolina is going to fumble and fold in the fourth quarter. That's what I'm really hoping for. I don't believe that drive-killing penalties have been really a big problem, much more than just the lack of turnovers and the inappropriate times of those things. So to me, as I mentioned the past 2 episodes, I'm not so worried about penalties as I am turnovers. Turnovers will disrupt the rhythm. Penalties can as well. But to me, the defense hasn't been very opportunistic of getting turnovers and forcing turnovers regularly. And the offense from time to time has been stalling in because of those things. And so Clemson is not a great team this year. South Carolina is not a great team this year. Neither one of the teams need to be spectacular, but they've got to clean this stuff up and focus on the details and execute at a high level to win this type of game. This is a rivalry game where there's a lot at stake, and what happens in the future all revolves around the result of this game. I don't want to see another Clemson team that goes 1 for 13 on third down. Or a Clemson game in that way. They've been awful in that sense. They've got to get better in situational football, and their play calling has to get better. And I don't even mind a bunch of screens if they are actually working. Doing a bunch of screens and then still losing the game, that's where that kind of frustrates me. Clemson has to play sound football, functional football to win this game. They don't need to shoot themselves in the foot because things can get ugly fast. And they can't have these miscommunication issues and missed assignments pop up again, or they will have a scenario where Lenore Sellers and company will take advantage of that. So for me, Clemson can win this game. Clemson has the weapons to win this game. And they have the talent on both sides of the ball to hang with this team and win this game. They've just got to do it. Keep in mind, this is a team in South Carolina that just won against Coastal, but hadn't saw a win in over a month before that, and then really didn't get wins until very early on in the season before that. So Clemson can win this game, but they have to play and execute at a high level. And really, I put it all on the coaching staff here. And if they continue to do the same mistakes, this is going to continue to leak into 2026 and 27 and beyond. They've got to put their foot down and say, hey, no more of this. This is not allowed. I know it's the last regular season game of the season, but there's no better time than now to fix your problems. If they can, great, they'll win the game. If they can't, could be a long time, could be a long hour of game time or 3 hours of watch time for the Clemson fans out there. All right, segment 2, we're going to jump into Cade Klubnik and a reality that could happen tomorrow. right here on Locked On Clemson. The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift, and Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or reading or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steak delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. I told you this, but I sent my brother-in-law an Omaha Steaks gift before, and man, he loved it. The reaction was amazing when he opened that box. When it arrived, he had a huge smile, and when he throwed it on the grill, man, it was a great experience, and I recommend it to anyone as well. Save big on the unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. For an additional $35 off, you can use promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE, at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, now, I said this on the radio, but are we going to get a steady Cade or are we going to get a chaotic Cade? Let's be honest. Cade Klubnik hasn't been playing that great. He hasn't lived up to expectations. He's done his best. I think I put a post on social media. Did he do his best or not? He didn't live up to expectations, but I do believe Cade is doing his best. He just can't get out of his own way in many cases. Can he play 4 clean quarters against a good defense? He's had his moments. He's had his flashes. He's had his stretches where he looks like he could be a star, but he just can't put it together, and he definitely can't put it together against his most difficult opponents. Even when he won against South Carolina 2 years ago, it was a dragger. 15-7, it was terrible. I hated watching that game. It was miserable. Clemson fans, will they be able to ever exhale with Cade Klubnik under center or at shotgun? Part of Cade Klubnik fan group, or part of the Clemson fan base, says Cade Klubnik can't read the defense. He can't. I mean, you're going to try to convince me that he can. I think you're losing your mind. Cade Klubnik is a half a field read guy. He's not a full field read guy. He's a 1-2 read guy, or maybe a 1 and a check down guy. But most of the time, he's a 1 read dude. And that's okay in some ways. It's not okay for elite football. And we've seen that. He's lost all the games that matter. But a handful or less. But Cade's not the greatest at reading the field. Some people say that he's getting better as the season goes on. I would say Cade has stayed the same. The opponents have just gotten different. Here's my thing, though. Cade is the problem in a lot of ways. Cade is the solution in a lot of ways, too. And I'm not saying that the truth or the reality is that he needs to be Superman. He doesn't need to be Superman. He needs to do the simple things extremely well. South Carolina's secondary is not one that scares me much. Cade Klubnik can take control of that. He has Tristan Smith, TJ Moore, Antonio Williams, Christian Bentancur, Adam Randall, Gideon Davidson. He has weapons. Caller Maria came in last night, and she said that she looks to see TJ Moore have a big game. One thing I like about TJ Moore is that he's in that screen game world, and he actually can take it to the house from the screen game. We've seen it multiple times where he's had big plays from a screen pass. Can TJ Moore have a big game behind Cade Klubnik as well, throwing him the ball? South Carolina's secondary is beatable. South Carolina's defensive front is going to be scary, but the screen game may be a way to keep them out of it. Could it be a possibility that that's how they attack things? Clemson hasn't really been consistent in taking advantage of bad secondaries either on their end. Cade's not really been very reliable in the run game either. Maybe he could add more to that this game. and he hasn't had much of a cushion and protection with his offensive line. So I can understand why there'd be a lot of doubts on if Cade can actually survive on the road, or if he'll just go to happy feet Cade, panic Cade, and pee on the rug, as Mickey says on the radio. Here's something that I want to say about Cade that I think could happen. Clemson's pass protection has been better or more trustworthy than their run blocking. They've struggled to move the chains on offense, but the plays are there. Cade could have more time than we're giving him credit for. If Cade has more time, then who's to say Cade Klubnik can't have a Cole Stout game? And maybe you don't remember the Cole Stout game, but let me remind you, okay? It's 2014. Cole Stout is the starting quarterback for the team. He went through 3 straight games with no passing touchdowns. Actually, more than 3 straight games of no passing touchdowns. That was just 3 straight in September. But he had actually 5 straight games. Okay? 5 straight games in 2014 with no passing touchdowns. If you want to think that you've been through a hard time, you don't know hard times until you've seen Cole Stout play quarterback. And they still won these games, by the way. But he rarely did anything that kind of made you excited. Finished that season, or his career rather, 17 total touchdowns and 11 interceptions. However, his last game against Oklahoma, 26 completions for 36 attempts, 72%, much higher than he'd done all season, really. He's 65% average on his career, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game. He dominated Oklahoma. They won 40-6. They got out to an early lead and never looked back. I'm not going to say it will happen, but I'm not going to say it won't happen. Who's to say that Cade Klubnik can't have a Cole Stout game? It's happened in the past. It could happen again. Clemson's pass protection has been more solid than their run blocking. Clemson's wide receivers can get open and make explosive plays if he can find them. That's a big if he can find them. South Carolina's secondary is beatable. While I said in the previous shows and on the radio, I don't want to see a 50 attempt game from Cade Klubnik, because to me, that would then be an indictment on Garrett Riley and not having balance. The team needs balance. It has to have balance. It has to have at least a hint of a run game, not just a hint. It has to have a threat of a run game. It does. And I will accept, some of that being it's from the screen game, but it still has to have some sort of acceptable traditional handoff game, not just screen games, to win this South Carolina game. But with Cade being his last rivalry game, would you forgive him of all his wrongs, of all his downfalls, of all his flaws? Would you forgive him if he won this game, and not just won this game, but won 40-6 with 300 yards and 3 touchdowns? I think a lot would be forgiven from Cade Klubnik. He won't ever go down as one of the best quarterbacks Clemson's ever had, but in a season that is the worst season Dabo Swinney has ever had in his history as a head coach at Clemson, could Cade Klubnik having a monster game turn this thing around, at least for his narrative and his send-off as a player? Honestly, it would right a lot of wrongs for me. But a lot of that has to do with how important the game is being against South Carolina. That's how serious we Clemson fans and Gamecock fans take this game. You can right a lot of wrongs by destroying this team tomorrow. Really. So, Cade, if you're listening, if you have a 40-point, 3-touchdown, 300-yard game, I'm not going to be mad at you. And I'll forgive you for losing to Georgia Tech. I'll forgive you for losing to Syracuse. I'll forgive you. All right. Segment 3, we'll finish up with what all this means. We talked about what all it means for Cade, what all it means for Garrett Riley and the execution and the play calling and the situational football. But segment 3, we're going to talk about what this really means for Dabo Swinney and the future of Clemson football right here on Locked On Clemson. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. I even have my friends over on X sending me messages showing me what they're able to do. It keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head over to FanDuel.com, sign up, play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 3 here on Locked On Clemson. Thank you to the everydayers for sticking with me. And if you are not yet an everydayer, what are you waiting for? Hit that follow, hit that subscribe, and stick with us so you never miss another episode. What this game means for Dabo Swinney, what this game means for Clemson's direction and the future of Tiger football. This could be the most important 24 hours of Clemson's offseason starting now. And I know it's not the offseason yet. That's the trick, is that this game is kind of like a foreshadow or at least a look at how this offseason may go. Saturday isn't the end of the season, but it's the most important time. It's the beginning of the most important time for Clemson to figure out what they're going to do for 2026 and the future. If they go out there and they just get destroyed and have an embarrassing loss, then it accelerates a lot and emphasizes the importance of this offseason even more. If they go out there and they dominate, then maybe it tempers some things. And I know some fans are out there that have said, I don't really want to win this game or the next game because I don't want Dabo to walk away with an 8-win season. I understand that. I really do. I understand that being 8-5, and what was it? Monday's show, I said 6-6 already. They're not 6-6 already. I don't know. I just got confused with the numbers, but they're 6-5 right now. They could finish up 8-6 or 8-5. Gosh, yeah, there we go. They could finish up 8-5, and a lot of fans believe that Dabo Swinney would look at that and say that it was a successful end of the season and that changes aren't really needed. I don't believe that. Whether or not they win these next 2 games, I believe that what we're hearing from behind the scenes is that staff changes are coming. Staff changes are coming big time on both sides of the ball. Win or lose. Win or lose this game, win or lose the bowl game. And Graham Neff is pressuring this staff and head coach Dabo Swinney to get right with the times. And I was skeptical with Graham Neff because he's so young, but he has a presence about him. If you've ever met him, he has a presence about him, and he has a confidence about what his vision is for the university. And I do believe that his vision is inclusive of Dabo Swinney, but Dabo needs to get real with what changes need to be made. And I don't think he needs to. So I say he needs to as a past tense because I believe he will. What we're hearing is that staff changes are coming and that conversations are being had and that Dabo understands the future of college football and the urgency in which he needs to build his roster in a different way. Gone are the times where you can just bring in a bunch of true freshmen out of high school and wait for them to develop. Now, Dabo has stood firmly on the fact that he's not going to kick anybody off the team. But while I believe that, and I don't like that feeling, because this is what the players wanted. They wanted to be paid. They wanted revenue share, and they deserve that because it's a huge market. But now we've turned it into that without contracts, and that's not appropriate. They need to have contracts, in my opinion. And if they're not holding up their end of the bargain, then they need to hit the free agent market. If Dabo's not going to force them out, then what will force them out? Playing time. Playing time will force them out. Most of the players. You'll still get guys like Dietrich Pennington that just stick around. You know, for whatever reason, they never get any playing time, but they just stick around. Are those guys really hurting the team? Maybe they are. But Dabo's refusal to hit the transfer portal aggressively is now no longer a thing. He's got to do it. And I believe that from what we're hearing is that he will do it. And it is a necessity. It's not a want. It is a need. It is a must. The portal window starts January 2nd, but the decisions being made started before today and will be solidified on what happens this weekend with how aggressive they need to go. There's only one window, and that's January 2nd to the 16th. I do believe that there'll be a lot of players from Clemson that are going to enter, and probably more than fans think. I do believe that Clemson's going to have to adjust quickly. But the great thing about the transfer portal market is that these guys are more game ready than anybody you can bring in recruiting. Go ahead and bring in as many as you can in recruiting. And then you need to supplement with the transfer portal aggressively. Now that you have 105 players, those players need to be purposeful for the direction of the program. Everybody has their share of Daniel high school players that aren't really going to help out the team. What we're talking about is those guys that they need to evaluate for first and second string. Clemson cannot afford to go through another season with a weak second string that they have. And they cannot afford to just take take the talent that they have on the team. You look at things like talent composite on 24/7 Sports, and everybody said, well, Morgan, Clemson was like 7th overall. Yeah, but that was counting Jeremiah Alexander, who was not given an opportunity, did not earn an opportunity to become a starter as a 5-star. That was as Jaden Lucas, who has been banged up and lost his opportunity because of his poor play, and he's counted as a 5-star. That was as Gideon Davidson, counted as a top player, but true freshman, didn't get a lot of opportunity till later on in the season and still hasn't got a ton of opportunity. So Clemson has talent, but those talents are not impacting games in the way that they had hoped, or we had hoped. If Clemson wins, it helps calm the fan noise, helps create a little bit momentum, and helps Clemson be more attractive in the portal. Those are things that are measurable and manageable and helps keep that pressure down. If Clemson loses South Carolina game, that it accelerates even more criticism. It puts even more pressure on the staff overhaul, puts even more pressure and push to go to the portal, and it raises even more questions on what Dabo Swinney is doing with this program. Can the guy that got you to the top of the mountain, but also oversaw the valley, also get you out of that? And I've told you this over the past couple of months. There's not been a lot of measurable success from past coaches that have been able to do that without changing programs and going to different universities. Can Dabo do it at the same university? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. But he deserves an opportunity to try, and give him a couple of seasons to try. And if it still doesn't work out 2 or 3 seasons down the road, then you know what decisions are probably going to be on the table at that point. I know some of you want the decisions to be made today about the head coach. I think Dabo is the best option for Clemson right now. He's the best option for Clemson to get out of it. But that's not without the reality check of that there haven't been a lot of head coaches that have been able to pull themselves out from their own failure at the same school that they had the failure at. How much does this game mean to you? Get in the comments, let me know. Get over on X and send me a message if you're listening on podcasts. I hope that you've enjoyed your holiday season. Hopefully you've enjoyed Thanksgiving and not shop till you drop too much out there on Black Friday. But we'll see you next week with, the reaction of the rivalry game against South Carolina. Win or lose, the future of the program is going to be more clear based on this game Saturday. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs, Alex Dono, they break down the most interesting college conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship to every game in between. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at Monday, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.